Welcome to Threads of Tomorrow Crafting Textiles. This is Season 2, Episode 3 of the Deep Dive.
Today we're going to get into the very structure of fabric itself. It's really fascinating.
It really is. I mean, you look at some of these incredible pieces like the figurative Benares brocades from India or, the huge apocalypse tapestry in France.
Those are stunning. The detail is just mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And those pieces, well, they use such complicated mechanisms that a single one can take months, sometimes even a year to finish. They're basically woven masterpieces.
And yet the actual act of weaving is one of humanity's oldest, most fundamental techniques for making fabric. It's been used for everything from, basic clothing to high art.
Exactly. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We know those giant complex looms exist, but we want to zero in on the basics of hand loom weaving. We want you, the listener, to really get the fundamental mechanics, the parts of the loom, how the threads move, and how that simple movement creates these incredibly intricate structures.
And we should note, we're focusing on hand looms. Power loom weaving, while it uses the same core ideas, is really a whole different world.
It is. But before we get into the warp and weft, we want to mention that this deep dive is brought to you by ohmemy.com, which is all about lifelong learning for personal development.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The core of any woven fabric.
The tension. That's where it all begins, right?
Quicker.
You just have two sets of threads and the relationship between them, the warp and the weft.
Weaving is fundamentally just the intersection of those two. So first, you have the warp threads.
The vertical ones.
The vertical ones, yeah. They run up and down the loom, and they are the fixed structure.
And that's a pretty demanding job for a thread.
It really is. We often call the warp the backbone of the fabric.
Right.
Because it bears all the tension during the entire weaving process. So those threads have to be strong, they have to be taut, perfectly aligned, or the whole fabric is just compromised from the start.
So if the warp is the backbone, the weft threads are, what, the travelers?
That's a great way to put it. They're the travelers. They run horizontally back and forth through that warp system. They don't have to bear the tension.
Instead, they carry the story.
Exactly. They carry the color, the pattern, the texture. The weft is where you really build the design.
Okay, so let's unpack how we keep that backbone taut and help that traveler along its journey. That gets us to the loom itself.
Right, the framework. It's evolved over thousands of years, but the basic function has stayed pretty much the same.
So we can break a basic hand loom down into, what, 3 main systems?
I think so, yeah. Let's start with the beam system. This is what controls the material from start to finish.
The supply chain of the fabric. So the back, you have the back beam or the warp beam. That's the storage unit.
It holds all the unwoven warp threads. And then at the front, you have the cloth beam.
The collection unit.
Yep. It just rolls up the finished fabric as you work.
Simple enough. But the next part, the shed-making mechanism, this seems like where the real magic happens.
This is absolutely the heart of the loom. This whole system is what separates the warp threads to create that opening the shed for the weft to pass through.
And it has a few parts working together. You have the heddles.
Right, the little wire or cord eyes that each individual warp thread passes through.
And the heddles are held in a frame called a harness or a shaft.
And those harnesses are the pattern creators. By lifting some harnesses and leaving others down, you instantly create that shed.
On bigger floor looms, those are controlled by treadles, right? The foot pedals.
Exactly. The treadles let you use your feet to change the pattern, which frees up your hands to, actually do the weaving. It's a huge leap in efficiency.
I can imagine. So once the weft thread is through the shed, you need to lock it in place. That brings us to the beading mechanism.
It sounds a bit aggressive, but it's all about precision.
Right.
This involves the reed, which looks like a big, heavy comb. Its first job is to keep all the warp threads spaced out perfectly.
And the reed is held in a frame called the beater.
Yep. So once the shuttle passes the weft through, the weaver uses that beater to push or beat that new weft thread firmly against the fabric that's already been woven.
And how hard you beat it determines the density of the fabric, the threads per inch.
Precisely. A soft beat gives you a loose, airy fabric. A hard beat gives you something tight and durable, like canvas. It's the moment of compression that locks it all together.
Okay, so we have our foundation, our pattern thread, and the loom. Now we need the vehicle, the shuttle.
The shuttle is the star of the show, for sure. It's the tool that actually carries the weft yarn through the shed.
And there are different kinds, right?
Yeah.
From the really simple ones to more advanced.
Definitely. You have your basic stick shuttle, which is just a flat piece of wood, great for small projects. Then you have the more classic boat shuttle.
Named because it looks like a little boat.
It does. It's smooth, pointed, and it holds a bobbin of thread inside, so it glides really nicely.
But the real game changer was the flying shuttle.
Oh, absolutely. Invented by John Kay back in 1733. Before that, you needed two people to weave a wide piece of cloth, throwing the shuttle back and forth.
Or just really long arms.
Or really long arms, yeah. The flying shuttle used a mechanism to shoot the shuttle across the loom automatically.
And that simple invention basically doubled the speed of weaving, which created a huge demand for yarn. Spinners couldn't keep up.
Which led directly to innovations like the spinning jenny. The flying shuttle didn't just speed up weaving, you could argue, it kicked off the whole industrial revolution in textiles.
It's incredible how one little tool can change everything. So regardless of the shuttle, the process is this constant rhythmic sequence.
It's like a dance. There are 4 main steps. Step 1 is setting up the warp. This is the hard part.
The prep work.
The prep work, exactly. You have to load all those threads onto the back beam and then meticulously thread each one through its heddle and the reed. It takes forever, but if it's not perfect, nothing else matters.
Once that's done, the action begins. Step 2.
Step 2 is inserting the weft. The weaver uses the treadles to open the shed, then passes the shuttle through.
And then step 3, locking it in.
Beating the weft. You use the beater to push that new thread tightly into place.
And finally, step 4 is just repeat.
Repeat. You choose a new combination of harnesses, open a new shed, pass the shuttle back, beat it, and on and on. The pattern builds row by row.
It sounds so meditative. You know, understanding all these structures takes some real dedication, which makes this a perfect moment to pause.
Right. This exploration of textiles is powered by omimai.com.
And if you're a curious learner who wants more than just these deep dives like specialized blogs, tools, and workshops, we really invite you to join our omimai.com WhatsApp community.
It's called Devi the Curious. You can just scan the QR code on this podcast's poster to join and stay informed about everything we curate for you.
So we've talked about the process. Now let's talk about the different kinds of looms themselves. The variety is huge.
It really is. You can have something as simple as a little lap loom, like a rigid heddle loom, all the way up to a massive floor loom that takes up a whole room.
The rigid heddle loom is a great starting point, right?
It's perfect for beginners. It's so smart because it combines the heddles and the reed into one single flat piece.
So you just lift or lower that one piece to create the shed.
Exactly. It's compact, portable, and great for learning the basics.
Then you can step up to a table loom.
Right. Still small enough for a tabletop, but now you have multiple harnesses, 4, 8, even 12, that you control with hand levers. They're amazing for experimenting with complex patterns.
A bit slower, though, since it's all by hand.
A bit slower, yeah. Which is why for big projects, you graduate to the floor loom.
The traditional workhorse. These are the big, freestanding ones.
And their defining feature is the treadle system. Your feet do the heavy lifting of changing patterns, so your hands are free to fly with the shuttle and the beater. They're built for speed and large-scale work.
It's amazing that the core principles, warp, weft, shed, beat, stay the same, no matter how big the machine gets.
That consistency is what lets us decode the fabric itself. It all just comes down to the rules the weaver follows.
So let's start with the most basic one, plain weave.
The building block of everything, it's just over one warp, under one warp, and you alternate that on every row.
Simple.
Simple, but it locks the threads together so tightly that it's the strongest, most durable weave. Think of canvas or muslin.
And a variation of that is basket weave.
Yeah, that's where you use the same under one structure, but you use 2 or more threads together as a single unit. It just gives it a chunkier, more textured look.
Okay, now for the one that creates an illusion, the twill weave.
Right. With twill, the weft floats over 2 or more warps, then under 2 or more. But the key is that the pattern shifts over by 1 thread on each row.
And that little shift is what creates the diagonal line you see on denim.
Exactly. It's just an illusion. The threads themselves are all running in straight lines, but that offset pattern tricks your eye into seeing a diagonal.
So is twill less durable than plain weave, since the threads are floating more?
That's a great question. It is a little less locked down, but what you lose in shear strength, you gain in softness and drape. That's why jeans are so comfortable. That twill structure lets the fabric move and bend with you.
Okay, now for the luxury end of the spectrum, satin weave.
Satin is all about minimizing intersections. The weft will float over many warps, sometimes 5, 6, 7, before dipping under just 1.
And those long floats are what create the shine.
That's it. Light reflects off those long, unbroken threads, giving it that incredible smoothness and luster. The downside, of course, is that those long floats are very easy to snag.
Beyond these three, it gets really complex. We have to mention jacquard weaves.
The jacquard loom was revolutionary. Before that, patterns were limited by the number of harnesses. The jacquard mechanism, using punch cards originally, allowed for control over individual warp threads.
Which means you could weave incredibly detailed images, like portraits or landscapes.
Anything you could design. It was basically the first programmable machine. It's a direct ancestor to modern computing.
And then there are things like double weaves.
Yeah, that's where you're weaving two separate layers of fabric at the same time on the same loom. You can make reversible fabrics or even seamless tubes.
And finally, you can add texture with pile weaves.
Pile weaves use extra supplementary yarns to create raised loops. If you leave the loops uncut, you get terry cloth for towels.
Super absorbent.
Super absorbent. And if you cut those loops, you get the dense, soft surface of velvet.
There are also loom embroideries, where weavers in some communities add in colored threads by hand while they're weaving.
It's an incredible skill. It just shows the loom is the tool, but the weaver is always the artist.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We've gone from the simple tension of warp and weft, through the mechanics of the loom, all the way to complex structures like jacquard, and it's all built on that simple binary choice.
Over or under.
Which brings us back to something you mentioned earlier, TPI. Threads per inch. Why should someone care about that?
Because it tells you everything about the quality and performance of a fabric. It's just the total count of warp and weft threads in 1 square inch.
So a higher TPI is better.
Generally, yes. A high TPI, like over 400, means the threads are packed tightly, the fabric will be more durable, smoother, and drape better. A lower TPI is more breathable, but won't last as long.
A great little piece of knowledge to have when you're looking at textiles. And before we go, a quick reminder, if you want more content like this, join the omimi.com WhatsApp community.
It's called Devi the Curious, and you can join by scanning the QR code on the podcast poster.
We'd also love for you to post in the comments about what topics you'd like to hear about next.
Definitely. So here's a final thought to leave you with.
Okay.
Every single woven fabric in the world, from a simple dishcloth to an elaborate tapestry, is governed by the same ancient binary logic. The loom is just a machine executing a code of ones and zeros, thread over or thread under.
That's a powerful way to think about it. That simple code has defined textiles for thousands of years. Think about that next time you pull on a comfortable pair of jeans.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to follow our podcast, and we'll see you next time.